Hi, Key. Welcome to the meeting. We're live. Do you want to test your audio? Also, Mayor Mahan, welcome to the meeting. We are live. Would you like to test your audio?
Hi, good evening.
We can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start shortly. Eric, welcome. Would you like
Oh,
to test your audio?
hi, Hillary. Great. Yes. How are you?
Great, thanks. We are live and we will start the meeting in just about a minute.
Okay.
Hi, Gabby. Welcome to the meeting. Would you like to test your audio?
Yes, thank you. Can you
Thanks.
hear me?
Yes, and we are live.
Thank you so much.
Daniel, I did something and I might have pinned the speaker. Did I just do that for myself? Good evening, everyone. My name is Hillary Baroga, and I am facilitating our meeting this evening. Hopefully you are here for the community meeting regarding the temporary housing at Monterey and Bernal and the county's proposal to purchase the site from the city of San Jose. Before we get started today, I'd invite you to join me in a mindful minute. If you're like many of the people I've talked to or heard from about this meeting, you might have come here tonight a little bit on edge or maybe frustrated. And maybe you're worried that you won't be heard or that you may be fearful of what might happen after this meeting. Or maybe you wish there weren't so many important events happening this week. I have a very strong optimistic belief that everyone here believes in goodness and wants to create and live in safe communities, that we want our own children and the children of others to be happy and safe, and that we want our most vulnerable and sick neighbors to be cared for. So before we get started, I'd invite you to join me in a mindful minute. 1 minute to help us transition from part of our busy day to the next, to prepare us to be present. It's not mandatory, so if you don't feel like doing this, that's totally fine. I just ask that you give the rest of us just 1 minute. If you do choose to participate and you're in a safe space, you're welcome to close your eyes or use the video that I will start in a moment to guide your breathing. Bring attention to how you're sitting and try to be relaxed and alert at the same time. Give yourself permission to let go of the busy day, become present, and focus on your breathing. Thank you for taking the time and joining me that minute. If you closed your eyes, take a moment to slowly open them, maybe shake your body out, roll your shoulders and stretch, and we will get started. Again, my name is Hillary Baroga. I am with the County of Santa Clara's Office of the County Executive. And before I introduce the other presenters for this evening, I would like to invite County Supervisor Sylvia Arenas to make a few opening remarks. Supervisor?
Thank you so much, Hillary. And I'm not able to open up my video because it says the host has stopped it. Is there any way that you can permit that?
Absolutely. Daniel will work on that right away. Give us just a moment here. Apologies for that.
Problem.
Supervisor, you can turn on your camera.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, it's still doing that.
Oh, strange.
And it continues to do that.
That's true.
We can see you.
There I am. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Hillary, for that wonderful start to this meeting. I really appreciate it. We all need to take a moment in silence, not only for our own well-being, but also for others, and to also reflect on this very day for folks and some of us who in this community were impacted many years ago through 9/11. So thank you so much. I hope everybody took advantage of the time. And there was a minute. I know that sometimes we don't give ourselves that. So thank you, Hillary, for creating that space so that we can actually do that. I wanted to thank everybody, start off by thanking everyone that is here. You will notice that I, as a supervisor, wasn't here in the first meeting, and so it was because I was sick. But my team connected with me and told me everything that had happened. And I'm very familiar with a lot of these meetings as I served on City Council for District 8 for 6 years, and so I see fellow mayor here. And now I serve as the county supervisor on the board, and been serving for the last year and a half, more or less. I've lived in the Evergreen area for the last 22 years, and so San Jose is very much my community. I'm a native. I was born and raised here, and just as invested in our community just as much as everybody else. And so I appreciate everybody being here. it's a sacrifice to be away from your children, from your family, from your friends, from walking the dog, from all of the wonderful things that we do after work or during work, or before work. So thank you so much for being here and for being open to listening and to having a discussion on this very difficult issue. I know each one of us has a different take on what is happening, but I'm going to start off by just saying that the moment that this proposal was first identified for the board, my feedback has been that we need to make sure that we're informing and integrating our community into what we're doing. And so this is really important to me. I know really important to my colleagues to make sure that you are heard. I understand that like one community meeting was never going to be enough. And so I'm really happy that everybody is here continuing to have this conversation and continue to learn about what your needs and wants are. Tonight's really important in terms of that opportunity to learn from one another, to open up this space for questions and really give the city, the county, all of us who are electeds the opportunity to hear from you. And especially our mayor who is here on behalf of the city of San Jose. I believe another colleague was going to be available, Councilmember Sergio Jimenez, but he had some technical problems. But I appreciate both of you for your leadership and for what you are doing to ensure that our community continues to participate and have a voice and be heard, more importantly than anything else. Listen, I'm going to really finalize this all by saying that we are going to, in the next hour and a half, have a bit of a difficult and maybe at times awkward conversation, but it needs to happen. And it is only awkward and maybe difficult because we all care very deeply about the future of our neighborhood. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this meeting. We wouldn't be having these conversations. And we can care about both things. So we're going to come together for a conversation because it's what we need to do to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. And because we want to make sure that we find the right answer. None of us here have the right answer, but together we're going to get there. Next, I'm going to introduce our mayor, Matt Mahan, who has been working extremely hard to focus efforts to solve this homelessness crisis. I know as a former colleague of yours, Mayor Mahan, I know that this was definitely something as part of your priority, and it continues to be. And I know the level of commitment is one that is tremendous, as your presence here shows, but more importantly, all the efforts that you have done over the last couple of years. And so thank you so much for being here, and I've passed this on to our mayor.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get my video on. Oh, good. Okay. Well, thank you, Supervisor. I appreciate that. Appreciate you being here and hearing your opening comments. I want to thank Supervisor Arenas, Keeley, and county leadership for the invitation and the opportunity to say a few things here at the beginning of this community meeting. And I have heard we have a good turnout here this evening. I want to thank all of the community members who are taking time out of your busy days to learn more. And I know there's a lot of concern. I'm going to be very blunt in my comments, as I always strive to be. I've heard from many of you. I know there is a lot of confusion and concern and fear, and I'm hoping that this meeting is going to help us, at a minimum, all get on the same page about the facts. So I wanted to appreciate the opportunity again from the county to be able to just address you all briefly. Let me start by just saying, from the city's perspective, why we are engaging in this conversation. We built the Monterey Bernal interim housing site to get people off the streets faster. And that's my commitment. My goal, I think many of us share this goal, is to end unsheltered homelessness in our community, to have a safe, managed place for every person on our streets. And one of the things at the city that we have wanted to do from the beginning of expanding this interim shelter capacity is we've wanted to have the county take over operations of as much of that system as possible for two main reasons. I just want to lay out why we initiated this conversation. And just to go back, in June, the council voted unanimously through the budget process as part of filling our budget deficit, by the way, to engage the county in a conversation about having them run one or more of our interim shelter sites. And there are really two big benefits to that. The first is that the county is the primary provider of health and human services in our community and can offer a much higher level and quality of services, particularly around behavioral health, than the city ever could. And so we believe the county has a really unique and important role to play in providing health and human services. Number two is a budget perspective. The city has extended itself and is consuming a lot of resources that are technically general fund resources that could go to police staffing, road paving, park maintenance, and the list goes on, core city services, where we have a unique responsibility, and I would rather spend our dollars. So to the extent that the county is able to run our interim housing communities, there are real benefits in terms of better services and more money freed up in our budget for essential city services. That being said, when the council voted to explore this, it was just that. It was an exploration. And that's what we're doing tonight. And the reason that I have wanted to be measured in my response and say that I'm waiting to get more information is that I want us to all get the facts. Because the reality is that many of the people on our streets today have nowhere to go and have significant challenges. And while during the budget conversation, we did not explicitly talk about jail diversion, the truth is that the majority of people in our shelters are just involved in some way. Because the reality is, once you've been out on our streets, you're getting cited for trespassing, for littering, for drug possession, for relatively minor infractions. So I want to make sure we have the facts. It may be the case that we as a community and as a city choose not to go this direction. We want to hear from our partners at the county how they would run the site, who they would serve. I am not going to support a transfer that would make the community less safe. We are only interested in pursuing a partnership that's going to benefit the community, that will make the city safer and cleaner and get more people off of our streets. That's the mission and spirit of Monterey Bernal, and we're going to stick to that. But I will say again, there are some real benefits to having the county run more of our shelter and health and human services here in San Jose as we seek to end unsheltered homelessness. So that's the conversation we're having. We're going to learn more tonight. No decisions being made tonight. This would still have to come back to the city council for a vote. I have a lot of questions for our partners at the county and look forward to learning more. But I think it's really important that we at least are clear on the facts, because there was a lot of confusion coming out of the last meeting. Final thing I'll say, and then I'll turn it over to the presenters. I also don't want you to look at this in a vacuum. As we build safe, managed places for people to go and partner more closely with the county to provide the services we need, the health and human services, the behavioral health services for mental illness and addiction and other challenges people are facing, we are also stepping up our efforts in a very pragmatic way on the city side. We're building safe sleeping sites, safe parking sites. We are expanding no encampment zones. One of the other things we passed in this budget is, for the first time, a uniform enforcement of no camping zones around our shelters, including Monterey Bernal. That has not been implemented yet. That's been one of my big gripes, as I know it has been for many of you. If a neighborhood takes on a solution to homelessness, it should see the benefits without having tents, trash, crime in that area. We should be leaning in with more services, more accountability in that area, because you've been a good actor as a neighborhood I'm committed to holding City Hall accountable for delivering those increased police patrols and no encampment zones and doing everything we can to ensure that there is accountability for coming indoors and that we're actually making the community safer. So we're going to learn more tonight. I still have a lot of questions. I know you have questions and concerns. I'm going to turn it back over to the county whose community meeting this is. They're going to give us their facts and proposal on kind of how they would run the site. And rest assured, this still will have a lot of conversation. We'll still come back to council for an up or down vote. And so I look forward to learning more and continuing the conversation with all of you, because it's going to take all of us, including the city and county, working very closely together to actually end unsheltered homelessness in our community. So let me turn it back to, I believe, Hillary. And thank you again for letting me share a few thoughts at the beginning of the meeting here.
Thank you, Supervisor Thomas and Mayor Mahan, for taking the time. And yes, I'll be facilitating the meeting today and presenting some information. I would like to introduce a couple of colleagues who will also be presenting information. We have with us Gabby Olivares from the Behavioral Health Services Department at the county. Gabby will present some information in a bit, as well as Sylvia Perez McDonald, who is with the Office of the Independent Defense Counsel, and she also will be sharing in the presentation. We also have with us Deputy County Executive Key Lee from the county and the Director of the Housing Department at the City of San Jose, Eric Sullivan, and they are available to help answer questions. I'd like to spend a moment talking about our meeting format tonight. So, as has been indicated, we do have an informational presentation about the county's planned use. We also have answers to frequently asked questions that are available online. We have published those and I have posted a link in the chat. I'll post it again periodically so that you can see it as it goes by. Perhaps click on it, and we will post it once more at the end. If you received the postcard for this evening, you will note a QR code and a bit link for the site or for a website, which will take you to that website. The frequently asked questions link is just below the pictures of the Vermont site and the Monterey Bernal site. During this meeting, we also want to be as engaged with you in terms of feedback as possible. I would like to note that at this point, there are 516 attendees. And so it's a large audience, and we may not, it would be impossible for us to get to every question in the time that we have allotted tonight and to give every person a chance to speak. We do welcome you to use the Q&A function throughout the meeting to ask questions, and we will be responding to those as much as we can during the meeting. Again, please put all questions into the Q&A feature instead of the chat. We are not going to be able to monitor the chat closely enough to respond to questions there. We are leaving the chat on for comments and notes from people who are not seeking an answer. So I see on my screen in the chat right now, some folks commenting no jail diversion at the site, and you're certainly welcome to do so. Please do know that we want to be able to see everyone's comments, and we have heard very clearly that there are several people who don't want the jail diversion at the site. If you do want the jail diversion at the site and you say yes, I would say the same thing as if you put it once, we will see it. You don't need to put it over and over. Please do give the opportunity for others to have their messages seen as well. After the informational presentation, we will hear public comments, and we do have a format for public comments. If you would like to make a comment during the public comment session, please raise your hand to speak, and when we will call on speakers in the order that they raised their hands at the time of public comment. We'll ask you to unmute, and depending on the number of speaker requests is the amount of time that we will be able to give each person. If we have fewer than 25 people who wish to speak, we'll give each person 2 minutes. If we have between 26 and 50 speakers, we'll give each person 1 minute. If we have more than 50 people who have raised their hands to speak, we will have 30 seconds per speaker. We wish we could give more time per speaker, but we have a limited amount of time tonight, and do encourage you to ask questions in the chat that we will work on answering, as well as post comments that we will read, if not during the meeting, then certainly after the meeting. The queue to speak will close when the first speaker begins. So that will help us determine the amount of time that we have, as well as the final person to speak, if we have enough time to get through everyone. To allow for as many speakers as possible, we are not going to use that public comment time to answer questions. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask, please ask them in the Q&A feature, and we will answer them in the Q&A feature if we're able, or live if we're able. And if we're not able to get to your question tonight, because I will note that there are currently 88 open questions, we will do what we can to incorporate those into an update of the frequently asked questions document. I'm posting the link to the frequently asked questions document now. So if you haven't been able to link to that, please do so now. Excuse me. And we will take as many speakers as possible until the published meeting end time of 7:30 p.m. And with that, I will turn us over to our content. So our goal for engaging in this is that we know that people's mental illnesses and substance use disorders, or their behavioral health conditions, improve when they have stable housing. Having dedicated beds for people while they're receiving behavioral health treatment gives us a better chance, and them a better chance, at having effective treatment so that they can stabilize and get healthier. Tonight, we're here because the county has made an offer to purchase the emergency interim housing site at 6066 Monterey Road at the intersection of Bernal from the city of San Jose. We'd like to note that the planned use is not a significant change from the current use. This supports the city and the counties and the community's collective efforts to prevent and end homelessness, and we think will result in additional benefits for the site residents and the community. Again, we do not think that this is a significant change, and we hope the information that we're presenting tonight will communicate that. So what stays the same? At the site, it is currently used as emergency interim housing, temporary shelter or housing for people who are unhoused. When I say people who are unhoused, you may also think of that as homeless people, people experiencing homelessness. So people who are unhoused, homeless people, that's the same thing. We will continue to use the site to provide temporary shelter and support services for people who are unhoused, men and women. We will also continue to reduce unsheltered homelessness at the site, because the site will continue to be used for unhoused people and will help the participants, residents at the site, obtain permanent housing. The site has already been serving people with behavioral health conditions and people who've had some justice involvement. And we'll explain what that is in a minute. So when we looked at data recently of the people who have stayed at the site this calendar year, about 15% of people have had been to jail within 6 months of enrolling in the site. And almost half of participants reported that they had some sort of behavioral health concern. So we're already serving these people at the Monterey Bernal site. What's going to change? So the thing that changes is that now the program will prioritize some of our most vulnerable groups of unhoused women, people whose behavioral health and lack of housing often put them in connection with law enforcement and the justice system. Unhoused individuals who are being held for some of the most serious crimes are not, unhoused individuals who are not being held for the most serious crimes are already being released into the community because they're not deemed an unreasonable risk to the community. And I just want to talk for a moment about people's interactions with the justice system. And I think that Mayor Mahan spoke to this in his comments. Mental illness and addiction are chronic diseases, and with many chronic diseases, sick people don't always get the help that they need. Untreated, some behavioral health conditions can increase somebody's risk of committing a crime. For example, if somebody has hallucinations and the hallucination is telling them to do something, they may do something that they wouldn't do in a lucid moment. They may do something that they wouldn't do if their condition were treated. And when you combine untreated mental illness and addiction with situations like people not having food or shelter, that also increases people's likelihood to interact with law enforcement. In addition, homelessness across the country is often criminalized. Unhoused people get cited for normal human activities, things like sleeping. We all sleep. Things like resting, taking a seat somewhere, jaywalking, just being in public. But for an unhoused person, that often translates in law enforcement to loitering, vagrancy, or trespassing because they have nowhere else to go. And unsheltered people have higher rates of interaction with the police because of these things. It's also really important to note that unsheltered people are much more likely to be the victims of crime, especially violent crimes, than people who have a home, a house over their head. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Gabby Olivares, who will talk to us about what it means to be involved in the justice system and what kinds of folks she and her team work with.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hillary. Good evening, everyone. So what does it mean if you're justice involved? It can be as simple as a first-time encounter with law enforcement resulting in being cited or released, or not being cited and instead being referred to support services like behavioral health. It can also mean appearing in court for a preliminary hearing after being arrested, but being released on your own recognizance. Arrested for not appearing in court after being provided a citation. It also can mean participating in a formal jail diversion program through what we call collaborative courts, which are considered problem-solving courts that are evidence-based with the consent of program staff, the DA, defense attorney, courts. Problem-solving courts are specialized dockets within the justice system that focus on addressing the root cause of criminal behavior rather than solely punishing the client and providing alternatives. These courts aim to reduce recidivism, increase public safety by addressing underlying issues that lead individuals to commit crimes. The goal is to recognize that individuals who interact with the justice system are more than just their legal history, but have the potential to reintegrate back into our communities. Next slide, please. Are these dangerous criminals? Regardless of how an individual is connected to the justice systems, those referred to programs will not be facing charges for serious offenses like murder, violence, sexual crimes, or other crimes that pose a significant threat to public safety or unreasonable risk to the community. And for your reference below, we have California Penal Code Section 1001.36D. Includes a list of charges that would make someone ineligible for a formal diversion program. Next slide, please. Okay, well, now I'm going to turn this slide over to Sylvia Perez McDonald, who is the director of the Independent Defense Council. Sylvia?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabby. So the point of this slide is to give you a perspective about what happens when an individual is being screened in the justice system to see if they qualify for this diversion program. And remember that the idea of diversion is simply to redirect the person that would normally be in the justice system exclusively with the use of the typical punitive measures, but instead divert them to a more rehabilitative approach using best practices and the behavioral health system, and then surrounding this person with services so that we can address the underlying root cause. Sometimes it could be the substance abuse that is then a co-occurring condition with a behavioral or mental health condition. So it's important to keep in mind that the system of justice has critical safety nets and critical checks and balances to ensure that the individuals who receive the diversion option are people that are screened by a judge, by a public defender who is advocating on their behalf, but also importantly by the prosecutor's office, who provides input, particularly from a criminal justice, public safety perspective to the judge, and informs the judge with the facts and circumstances, the evidence that would indicate that this person represents an unreasonable risk to the community. So the individuals who would be participating in this type of diversion option and who would benefit from this service would have to go through this rigorous process through the court, through the judge, through the DA, in order to qualify for this service. This is something that has been well done and established in our system. We have collaborative courts whose primary objective is to provide the services to the individuals, wrap them around with connections so that they can get the treatment they need at the time that they need it the most. But the critical aspect is that they will need housing in order for those treatment alternatives to be effective. So the slide that you see here addresses that. And we talk here about the county diversion option, which involves, again, the screening mechanism that involves the criminal justice partners. It includes the DA, the PD, and then ultimately it is up to a judge to make the ultimate determination of whether a person qualifies for diversion based on that legal criteria. And what I have to add to this is that, look, all of us have one common objective. Even our advocates on behalf of these individuals, ultimately what we want is the best possible outcomes for them, which means that they do not come back to the justice system. And we cannot do that without effective interventions. And what that ultimately translates to is that at the end, we all have a shared value, which is we all want safety. And this is the best possible way to address recidivism and address the root cause by providing the individuals and more importantly, providing the court system with the tools to be able to be effective in our ultimate objective, which is to address the community safety concerns that we all see here expressed and that we all ultimately have and that we all ultimately have in common.
Thank you, Sylvia. Gabby, I think you're back up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So just to quickly reiterate some of the things that Sylvia talked about, there's a range of individuals that would be eligible for this program, not just jail diversion, but it can be people that have had a first time touch with the justice. Law enforcement does not feel it's necessary for them to, end up in the county jail. It's a first time offense. They're most appropriate to start to enter treatment and, focus on their welfare and betterment to make them productive citizens. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that there's different sectors of the population that would be eligible for these programs. And I just wanted to touch upon quickly for everybody the services that would be provided at this location. Temporary housing while people work toward long-term housing. Estimated stays for these individuals would be 12 to 18 months. And again, we want them to have a long-term housing plan. The other thing is they would be eligible for housing navigation support. So what this would do is identify needs and opportunities, developing a housing plan, helping people identify and secure housing, basic need support, meals, toiletries, referrals to the clothes closet, transportation support, and on-site security would be provided at the facility. And also treatment. So the nice thing about this program is you're going to have housing support and you're going to have treatment on site. So from an outpatient perspective, individuals would receive case management, planned counseling, therapy, medication support, crisis intervention, recovery services, individual support as well to work on their treatment goals, on-site groups. These groups would include topics such as coping strategies, resiliency, emotional regulation. All the therapies that we used are evidence-based, and other supportive services, referrals to employment assistance, community building activities, connection to meaningful daily activities. Many of our participants go back to school, they have work. So we would want to ensure that people have meaningful activity, not just treatment and programming. Thank you. Hillary, back to you.
Thanks, Gabby. So that is the bulk of our public presentation or our informational presentation. Again, I just put in the chat the link to frequently asked questions. So this is the point in the meeting where we are going to open it up to public comment, and I'm going to put the slide back up that shows our public comment format. So as I stated before, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand, and when it's your turn, the host will ask you to unmute. Each speaker, depending on the number of speakers, will have a set amount of time, and we will post a timer. And at the end of the time, we will need to mute each speaker. The queue to speak will begin, or it will close when the first speaker begins. So once we identify the number of people who would like to speak, so that we can set the timer correctly, we will do that. And to allow for as many speakers as possible, we will not be responding to questions live at this time. We are recording, so we will note your question and make sure that we do our best to answer it in the frequently asked questions that we will update after this meeting. You can also post your question in the chat and we will try to respond as quickly as possible. And we will take as many speakers as we can get to until 7:30. So if you would like to speak, now is the time to raise your hand. And I see that we have hit 51 raised hands. So Daniel, please set the timer for 30 seconds. We're going to give just another minute for any final raised hands. Just to prepare, the first hand that I see raised is Robert Izat. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Robert, just to prepare you, we'll ask you to unmute in just a moment. And the number of speaking requests is still going up. If you would like to speak, I'm going to do a 10-second countdown. And at the end of that 10 seconds, we'll invite Robert to speak, and that will be the end of the queue. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Our last speaker will be John Spitzer. And Daniel, you can please ask Robert to unmute.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have lived in this community since 1976, and during that time, we have seen nothing happening in San Jose other than a dumping site for both the county and the city. And we have seen our property values be impacted significantly. And it really upsets me when I see that there are multiple places within Santa Clara County. The Santa Clara County Fairgrounds would be an ideal site.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mila. Daniel, just a moment before Mila starts speaking, because I want to post the timer. All right. Mila, the timer will start when you begin speaking. Mila, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Mila, we cannot hear you. We'll come back to you. The next speaker is Elaine Say. Elaine, please accept the unmute and we'll begin the timer when you start speaking. Okay. We're going to move to Beth Ellis. Beth,
I unmuted.
thank you. Go ahead.
First of all, from what I can tell, none of you live in District 2, so I think it's pretty easy for you to say that this is a good thing. Second of all, I find it interesting that none of you talked about other options. It's like you're going to force this on us again. And let me remind you how we got here. You forced the tiny homes on us by calling COVID emergency. We voted against it. You did not follow procedures. And now we're here. Listen, talking about unsheltered homelessness, that's not what you're solving here. You're trying to move the criminals from downtown to here, and it's unacceptable. Matt, you should be ashamed.
Thank you. Our next speaker is iPhone. We've asked you to unmute. So if you are one of the many people with the iPhone, please check and see if you're being asked to unmute. And if you are on an iPhone and have raised your hand and are able to rename yourself, that might help. Okay, I'm going to move to the next raised hand. That is CV. We've asked you to unmute. Go ahead
Hi.
when you're ready. Hi, we can hear you.
Thanks. Okay, so I do think that the intent that you're speaking is good, but the place is wrong. We are already housing so many homeless shelters. I've been asking, can you show a distribution of these homeless shelters in other districts? Why does it all have to be District 2 or District 10? Can someone answer this question? We have not been able to get an answer to that. And also, this meeting should be held in a town hall in person, not on WebEx. This is just not working out.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tavia. Tavia, I've just asked you to unmute. Go ahead when you're ready. Tavia, I see that you are unmuted, but we're having trouble hearing. Or wait, I can't hear you. Okay, Tavia, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is another iPhone. I have asked you to unmute, so if you see a request to unmute, that is you.
Ready.
Oh, okay, Tavia, go
Ready.
ahead.
Okay. I'd like to know what it is about this new program that has so much better options than the program already in place. Like you said, there's people that have been in jail there, people with mental health issues. Why not just currently serve them? Because there's been people there that have been there for up to 3 years. This is supposed to be temporary. Why are we going to take the temporary thing that's not working, because it's not working, and put jailbirds over there to make that area unsafe? And it will make it unsafe for them.
Our next speaker is Alton Wong. Alton, if you're able to unmute, please begin speaking. Okay, Alton, we will come back to you.
Hi.
Oh, great. Hi, go ahead. Alton, we heard you for a second, but
Hello.
yes, go ahead.
I have no comment. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Todd Langton. Todd,
I have
ahead.
never sided with the neighbors when it comes to properties being used for housing, and this time I will and I must. Why are you going backwards? You've already got this site approved, it's functional, it's working. Why would you break the promises that you set up with these neighbors years ago? Why not use the other properties the county owns, i.e. the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds, and build this diversion program there? Don't go backwards. Keep the trust you built.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dan's iPhone. Dan, if you are able.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Jail and jail diversion are county responsibilities. Do not dump convicts into the city. San Jose Police and San Jose Fire are going to get the inevitable increase in all the chaos that these vulnerable people get into. Our strip mall is barely surviving at Bernal and Santa Teresa. These guys could finish it off with retail theft. Convicts pose a risk to residents, but you say some offenses are not serious. Well, they're serious when it happens to us. Kind of arrogant that way. A jail is a penalty and tiny homes are a reward.
Our next speaker is iPhone. So oop,
Hello.
yes, go ahead.
So this is really frustrating because you guys, when the city initially opened up the emergency interim housing under the guise of COVID, and it was meant to be temporary. Now you guys want to come in and purchase it. We have young children. I'm a mother of two myself right down the street. I don't even feel comfortable being outside with them because of so much theft and homeless people that have moved into the area based on already the emergency interim housing. Again, take it, make it better, not go backwards.
Thank you. The next speaker is San Jose District 7 Bien Duan, council member. Council member, we've asked you to unmute. Okay, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is Joe Lopez.
Good evening, ladies. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for hosting this event tonight. I'm sorry to say, in spite of your best efforts, that you have failed to convince me that this will be a sound and viable program in our district. You've mentioned the fact that it's justice involved with 15% of our residents, 50% of them with behavioral health concerns. We've already known that. The place for these folks is the jail, not in our community. The county needs to be.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carol. Carol, you are able to unmute.
Yes, I've been agreeing with everyone. We got these tiny homes at a time when it was COVID, and before that, there was thousands of people that showed up at Hayes Mansion to protest this. They went ahead and went through and put it through. Again, temporary housing, questions, how are you going to maintain it? No answers. And now they want to sell it and have again, criminals in our neighborhood. I agree with everyone. You cannot walk with these streets at night. They search your garbage cans. They're breaking into your cars. They're stealing.
Our next speaker is Mark Idemoto. Mark, you are able to unmute.
Yes, thank you. The Q&A only takes so many characters. So Matt, this is for you. It's a continuation. I'll try and get into it right now here. Residents of D2 and D10 are frustrated by the fact that there's no serious San Jose body or mechanism that can be held accountable for achieving equitable distribution balance or provide any detail related to progressive steps or benchmarks focused on increasing the build-outs in low participation districts. Will you, as
Our next speaker is Tabassum Vaidyanas. You are able to unmute.
Yeah, the tiny homes, can you hear me?
Yes.
The tiny homes had a ban on violent people. The county plan does not. This is unacceptable near our schools and our children. This is an unfair burden on our community. You are not listening to the voters. This is unacceptable. We have more tents, more homeless, more crime in our neighborhood since the tiny homes went in. We didn't have a say when they went in. We definitely need a say here. And what we are saying is this is unacceptable. We do not want it. It's an unequal burden on our community.
Our next speaker is Brenna. Brenna, you are able to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The prison therefore functions ideologically as an abstract site into which undesirables are deposited, relieving us of the responsibility of thinking about the real issues afflicting those communities, from which prisoners are drawn into disproportionate numbers. This is the ideological work that prison performs. It relieves us of the responsibility of seriously engaging with the problems of our society, especially racism and global capitalism. Angela Davis.
Our next speaker is Isa. Isa, you are able to unmute.
Yes, you've lost the trust with the community as how you came about and told us this was a meet and greet. This is really not the same kind of people that are in the houses right now in the tiny homes, because these people are drug abusers and mentally ill from your words, and they go before a judge or someone in the justice system and they get a choice, go to jail or go to the tiny homes. And you all know that's a lot different than what you're trying to make it sound like it's the same thing. Town hall meeting now.
Our next speaker is Cynthia de la Baja. Cynthia, you are able to unmute.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to say we are not mental counselors. Residents of the neighborhood cannot be involved in the treatment of these mentally ill or, a transition from jail to rehabilitating to the community. There are facilities that the county can build with professionals, mental counselors, get group therapy, become more self-sufficient before they are released into the community, rather than early doling out.
Our next speaker is Ravi Nandan's iPhone. Ravi, you should be able to unmute.
I don't understand. None of our questions from the previous meeting were answered. None of the other sites that were looked upon, right? There were no information shared that, hey, why is this the only location where all the good deeds that you want to do is bumped on? There are so many homeless people already here. There are so many homeless shelters that we are already supporting. How much more do you want? Do you want us to move? Is that what you guys want? Like, and what's the point of asking all the questions if you don't want to answer?
Our next speaker is Danya. Danya, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, my question is to our mayor, Matt, and I believe that he should have a say after this meeting because you guys are not answering anything. We have hosted so many IHS. Our homeless number went from 450 to 421 plus in 1 year. Please stop pampering criminals. They belong in jail. And we know with all these reforms, it's very hard for them to even get into a jail, like get in front of a judge. So if they get in front of the judge and are in the justice system, they are really bad criminals. Thank you.
I'm going to call again Council Member Bien Duan. Council Member, you are able to unmute.
So Councilmember Dwan is not able to be here, but I am his chief of staff. I'm also a District 10 resident. This is Jonathan Fleming here. And I just wanted to say that, this recent proposal for jail diversion was unexpected. It had no prior notice or discussion from the county officials with the office of Councilmember Dwan. And this plan would place individuals with criminal backgrounds, close to people's homes. Thankful for Councilmember Dwan and Councilmember Batra's leadership and getting this taken off the Rules Committee agenda and for their leadership to have this meeting.
Our next speaker is Info SV at Home. You should be able to unmute.
Yes, good evening. Matthew Reed, I'm the Director of Policy at SV at Home. I do not live in District 2 or 10. I work around the city, so I just want to be clear about that. First, there's clearly a tremendous amount of fear and anger, and I think there's a lesson about getting ahead and communicating with folks that we definitely need to learn. Second, I think it's very difficult for people to hear when they've already made the decisions. I think this is a service-rich opportunity for this site.
Our next speaker is Sarita. Sarita, you should be able to unmute. Sarita, can you accept the unmute? There you
It is really, shocking that Matt was elected under the impression that he will be looking after the community, and he is allowing this option to be presented. Okay. I don't know what to say, but if you come and look at the surroundings here, how bad it has become and how dangerous it is, we do not feel comfortable walking after sunset. You are trying.
Thank you. I've been asked to remind folks that if you are putting questions in the chat, please put them in the Q&A because we will be better able to respond to them. I'm also posting the link again to responses to FAQs. Our next speaker is Michael Ladasky. Michael, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, and shame on you all. I was actually a anti-NIMBY person, and now I am so much NIMBY, it is ridiculous. I'm considering selling my home and taking my stakes out of California when I am a caring, loving person. I believe what you said about trying to help people, but you've done too much and you only put it in the 2 districts that are there. Los Altos, Palo Alto.
Our next speaker is Roger. Roger, you can unmute.
Yes, it's Roger. You made this presentation in a way that if we oppose, then we're not compassionate. And, that's just not fair. I mean, as other speakers have said, this site was done 3 years ago under emergency declaration without the proper community input, without the appropriate environmental review. And now it's not a significant change. That's just not genuine at all. At a minimum today, you need to tell us when this is going to the city council so that all of us can be there. When will the next community meeting be?
Our next speaker is Caitlin. Caitlin, you can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just want to echo the sentiments that have been voiced already. It's disgraceful that you guys have railroaded this project and this program and are now going to do this jail diversion in our area. We do not have the resources to support. I also have 2 small children in this area, and we are also afraid to walk in the evenings. You guys could do better. We should have an opportunity to vote.
Our next speaker is Brian. Brian, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, I tend to be compassionate. I've actually given homeless folks or people without housing places to stay in my house too. But this is typical city, and I just tell everybody, even if they allow you to speak, they're not listening, they're not going to, and it's just an exercise in utter futility, and it really is.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ruben Chavez. Ruben, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you very much for that. So I'm a resident of District 10. I've a San Jose State grad. I have a master's degree, and I'm a recognized alumni. And so I have seen personally people try to steal out of Lowe's in San Jose, and I had to intervene. I had to grab them and cancel and tackle them and bring them to justice. And so this is ridiculous. I would encourage you to look at other options. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Roberta. Roberta, you should be able to unmute.
Hello, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, this plan is an utter failure.
you can't even support the projects that are going on now. There's a halfway house for mentally unstable people on my street. Cops come on a weekly basis. Men are walking down the street naked, defecating on the front lawn. There is no way that the city of San Jose is going to have enough support to properly run this facility. It's going to be overrun. We're going to have more crime, more people moving out, and you need to get your act together and work it.
Our next speaker is Priscilla. Priscilla, you can unmute. Priscilla?
Hello, sorry.
Yes, we can hear you. Yep,
So
go
yes,
ahead.
so my neighbor was not able to make it tonight, so she wanted to know if there will be a security outside. And then also my concern is that I'm in the district too, and yes, I bought this home for 25 years, and there are 2 locations of tiny homes here, and I have young kids, and there are schools here, so we don't feel safe. So you guys should just go to the fairground and do something about that area there instead of this area here. It's not unfair.
Our next speaker is Francesca Paste. Francesca, you can unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I am an active homeless advocate, and I want to know where your transparency is with data. Why didn't you come to this meeting and tell us how many you're running now, how long you've been running them, what is the success rate, and what happens to those who don't finish the program? If you were going to try to change hearts and minds, you would bring us real data. But this bait and switch, Matt Mahan, is unacceptable. I vote no.
Our next speaker is Brandy. Brandy, you can unmute.
I want to know, what are the other alternatives that are on the table and are being considered? Because just proposing this one is not acceptable. One, it makes us feel like you're going to push it through regardless. And 2, if you guys cannot support the current EIH systems that you have going on, then what are you doing opening more if you don't have the funding for it? I don't understand what the long-term goal here is in San Jose.
Our next speaker is named Recording. Recording, you should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Mukesh Navar. On August 13th in Basking Ridge, where I live, there's a big fire, and I saw who set it on fire. There was a campfire with a bunch of baking bean cans on the fire. This type of stuff is happening more often now than it did previously. Why take over a facility that is already solving a critical and tough problem for which it was originally intended? It is not a facility in disuse. This is a terrible betrayal which unfairly burdens the community, which has already shouldered more than its fair share of social initiatives.
Our next speaker is Vipul Rahane. Vipul, you should be able to unmute.
Hello. Hi. I live in District 10 and in Santa Teresa, and we already have around 5 shelters close by, and there's an RV parking coming up, and there's another shelter coming up, and we just don't want this jail diversion program. And also the shelters, they need to stop. Why don't you put it somewhere else and just let the people sort of live properly? Where we have kids, it's not safe.
Our next speaker is Bill Wilson. You should be able to unmute.
Yeah, since the site at Bernal and Monterey has gone in, our neighborhood has gotten so much worse. There's transients roaming the street. There's people sleeping on the sidewalks. This was never there before. You wonder why people have no confidence in the government. It's because of things like this and people like you who try to push it through. And also for Matt Mahan, I've generally been a fan so far, but if this goes through, zero confidence in you and you will not be getting my vote. And last thing, can you please answer any of these questions?
I'll just remind folks that there are answers to many questions on the frequently asked questions link. And
Hey, county
will
folks, am I allowed to chime in? I don't know if I have access to this. Thank you.
We're hearing
Hey
you.
guys, listen, I want to be clear. This is the county's community meeting. I'm joining as a community member like you. I will say I'm disappointed that we're not getting answers to the questions the community is raising. I think we're not doing a good job of actually getting people the information they need. So I am a little concerned here. But look, we put a link in the chat. This has not gone back to the council. As I said tonight, there's no decision being made. We voted as a council to initiate a conversation with the county because there are potentially benefits to having the county run city sites because they provide health services. We do not. They can provide services for addiction and mental health. We cannot. That being said, when the council unanimously voted to start that conversation with the county, there was no discussion of jail diversion at the council meeting. You can watch the tape. So I need everybody to just take a deep breath. We're learning. This is my first community meeting with the county, hearing about the proposal, just like many of you. I am also concerned. We will have a follow-up community meeting on the city side. There is a link in the chat to sign up for the city's community meeting. I will be there. We will continue the conversation. We will make sure everyone is fully aware of when there would be a vote. I will be very transparent with you about how I will vote before that meeting. There will be no surprises. No one is pushing anything through here. And I'm certainly not pushing anything through here. This is the county's community meeting to answer questions about their proposed services for the site. I continue to have questions and concerns, as I can tell many of you do. So I just want to be really clear that no decision's been made. I will be very clear about how I'm voting. I have big concerns about it as well. There's a link in the chat. Let's have the city's community meeting. We will continue the conversation. But I just, again, want to be clear. I'm not here to push this through. This isn't even the city's community meeting. I'm here as a participant like all of you to ask questions and listen. So I just want to set the record straight. Please sign up for the city's community meeting. We will have a follow-up chat very soon. I will be extremely transparent with you when we do.
And Hillary, can I step in also? And thank you so much,
Sure.
Mayor. I think, when I opened up the meeting, really was in the hopes that we would inform our community about what this really is. And this is not the only site. And this is our county and our city doing this meeting together. One of the issues that we have seen in local government is sometimes we don't work together as well as we can. The city provides a certain type of programming and support to our community. And I know this very well because I served as a council member in the past. And then the county provides a different kind of service, which is under more safety net services. So in the hopes of really producing a different type of outcome, this justice involved site would allow us to really be upstream and try to catch the folks that would be repeat offenders that you would typically see in your neighborhood, be in a more structured environment. Not without any consequence, because if they were not on track, they would return back to a justice involved environment. And so there's plenty of folks who are unhoused. I'm not saying all of them, but there's a number of folks who are unhoused who commit petty crimes or just simply just for being unhoused. Some folks get spotlighted for that and get picked up, but it's not a permanent solution. Our police, for spending more time picking up our unhoused versus responding to the needs that you have in your community, is not the way to do this. It really isn't. And so the folks who we are hoping to target, that is also our DA, our district attorney, is also reviewing. So there's a lot of very thoughtful rigor in terms of who and how we're going to do this. We're not just releasing anybody into your community. We're being very thoughtful about who these folks who will participate. And we provide a very structured environment so that they could be as successful as they can. Folks are coming out of our jail system and choosing any place to go to throughout any part of our city and in our county. That's the truth. That's what's happening currently. And so the difference is providing a structured environment where there's consequences as well as treatment and support. So the choice is having a different path, and not doing the same thing over and over and over again, because as you have all seen, there's a typical cycling of what we see with the unhoused, and there's no real solutions. So if somebody here could come up with a real solution and not putting folks into any elected neighborhoods, because we all live in your neighborhood, we live with you, we're living with the same issues that you're all living with. I haven't heard a real concrete solution except put it somewhere else. And that's the difficulty of this conversation, is putting this somewhere else. This isn't a concrete proposal in terms of really changing the pathways for some of our folks who are unhoused, who have very petty crimes. But this is something that the city can choose to either purchase or not purchase. I mean, sorry, they can decide to sell or not sell to us, right? The choice isn't made. There's an obvious message that I have heard the whole night through. And I've yet to hear from any one of you in terms of what a real long-term solution is. And so if you can come up with that, please put it in the chat or put it in the questions and answers. We said from the very beginning that we were going to answer your questions in a more structured way. And this was not going to be a question and answer live session. So that was made clear, very clear from the beginning. And so anyways, this is one model. It doesn't have to be in your neighborhood, but it's a model that can potentially work because we've seen it work in the past. And so it is up to the city of San Jose and their electeds to figure out whether this is something that they would like to sell to the county. We're ready to make something like this happen. And actually, we have 2 other sites that we've already had this community meeting for with those neighbors, and we haven't had this kind of feedback. And I think it's because they've seen the possibility of what something that is structured and different can offer folks who are unhoused, who happen also to have committed some petty crimes. So anyways, this is part of my response as I hear our mayor providing some comments. And to all of you, I look forward to hearing your permanent solutions to the unhoused problems that we're hearing here in our community. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Supervisor. We have 23 more speakers. As I mentioned when we started the queue, our final speaker will be John Spitzer. If I have lowered your hand, it's because you came in the queue after John Spitzer. So I think that we can get to all 23 people who were in the queue when we started public comment. Our next speaker is iPhone. You have been asked to unmute.
I'm sorry, but Sylvia, when you were back a council member, we were pushed and we have a similar meeting for these tiny homes, and it got pushed down to us. Also, back in that day, I suggested that the Seattle City already have different solutions and already have tried some of these alternatives, and you guys didn't want to listen to those options. So come on, please, come on.
Our next speaker is Kim. Kim, you can unmute.
Hi, thank you. And I just want to respond to Supervisor or Council Member, I'm sorry, I don't know your title, Arenas, even though I voted for you, I will not do so again in the future. I felt like the assumptions that were made coming into this meeting and talking to us as if we didn't have hearts and didn't understand that these are people with lives that need help was a very bad assumption. Not everyone feels that way. However, the issue with our neighborhood is that we have done more than our fair share and have a lot of in-house neighbors already.
Our next speaker is Nick. Nick, you can unmute.
Hi, first of all, shame on you. And this is more on Matt. I would like to know what is the legal provision under which county gets such an authority to make a hostile offer to purchase a land from City of San Jose? And second question is City of San Jose running out of money? And third question is the homelessness issue in San Jose is over?
Yeah, let me try to chime in on that because I feel like
Mr. Mayor, I'm so sorry. Maybe we do have people who have been waiting to speak.
All right. Yes, it's your meeting. I'm sorry. I would love to answer the questions offline. Please sign the form. We're going to have a city community meeting. I will answer your questions there. I apologize.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Godzilla. What better to follow a mayor? Godzilla, you can unmute.
I love following the mayor. I just wanted to say shame on all the people who have been racist and classist in their comments regarding this, and the NIMBYs who make assumptions about people in this program. That said, as a member of Survivors of the Street, I cannot support the loss of 80 beds for unhoused people, especially after the loss of 140 beds at the Sunnyvale shelter, while homelessness has increased 24%. You've united advocates and NIMBYs. Well done.
Our next speaker is Isaac Kayo. Isaac, you can unmute.
Yes, at the heart of this issue is a clear breach of trust between the city of San Jose leadership and the resident of South San Jose. Bernal site originally was planned to be temporary solution and for local homeless population. It was never intended for jail diversion. I want to correct you when you said few of us. We have thousands who already signed petitions against this. We have thousands who said no jail diversion at Bernal site. Thousands, not few. Please correct yourself.
Our next speaker is Michael Allen Huntington. Michael, you can unmute.
Hi guys, I had a number of different questions I wanted to ask, but I think the point I'm just gonna back off of all that and make a point of this meeting, the way it's structured, the way the city has allowed certain people to speak and make their point. It's not it should be open up to the community in an open forum. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dee Diaz. You should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm a property owner in District 10 and 2. And since the development and operation of these interim housings, we've experienced more crime, aggressive panhandling, and bizarre behavior persons. And this has been since 2020. This is like a Prop 36 for mental health is what you're asking us to do. They're going to get chances in order to continue this behavior. Try the DePaul property in Morgan Hill or the main jail itself where you guys have earmarked money for.
Our next speaker is Soren Floria. Soren, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, this is Soren Floria. Thanks everyone for listening.
honestly, I'm shocked of the things that the county, the superficial and unpractical solutions that they offering for a difficult issue with mental health. But we've had enough of the homeless or unhoused issues. Please move your site somewhere else and leave us alone.
Our next speaker is David Sirluk. David, you can unmute.
I understand a lot of the concerns people have. I'm a member of a recovery cafe for a place for people recovering from homelessness and addiction and incarceration. And I encounter people that come from jail, and I'm amazed at their dedication to improving their lives and the struggle they go through. So I would hope that you'd reconsider that. But given that, I'm also a member of Strive for the Street, and I'm against diverting.
Our next speaker is Lisa Campbell. Lisa, you can unmute.
I have to say, I agree with just about what everybody's saying here. Like, we are far less safe. I mean, we personally were robbed by homeless people, but frankly, Issa and I tried to track them down. We don't believe that you can manage and control these facilities. I live within 7 minutes of Villa del Oro, where we had no say. So they just keep dumping everybody in our area. I'm all about advocates. I feed the homeless, I help the homeless, but it's an unfair burden, and the city should not balance their budget because of us, right? It will affect us. All you have to do is walk around, shop around here, walk in the store.
Our next speaker is Pranjal. Pranjal, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, so I just want to say, like, this is really absurd, and there's a huge burden on this side of San Jose, and I don't think anybody is saying that we don't need to help those homeless people, but at least think of the area and think of just take a drive around Monterey, go to Costco, go around Lowe's, and you will see more and more of these homeless people making their illegal shelters. So maybe remove them and please let us be.
Our next speaker is Pamela Campos. Pamela, you should be able to unmute. Pamela? Okay, we'll come back. The next speaker is Scott Johnson. Scott, you should be able to unmute.
Good afternoon. This is not a democratic process. Tiny homes were sold to us by city staff, and council promised us that this would not occur when these were built. They promised us safety. 15% now criminals inside the Monterey interim housing being replaced by 100% criminals in mental health in our neighborhood. Numerous crimes are allowed that are violent. Residents have seen how this has degraded the neighborhoods. No safety plans provided. No, this is not safe. No, this should not be allowed.
Our next speaker is Haroon. Haroon, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I'm just going to echo everybody else's comments here. I'm just shocked by how inept the county and the city planning is on this one. Homelessness is a solved crisis in parts of the world and in Europe. I am just baffled by the comments of the city supervisor, and part of it, Mr. Matt Mahan. This is a voter saying this to you. This is a bad idea. You're going to lose your votes. Please stop this.
Our next speaker is Daniel Lovaway. Daniel, you can unmute.
Hello, this is Dan. I noticed at the beginning of the show, there was 15% jailed 6 months, 50% behavior, health conditions, but still 35% of people that aren't jailed and no mental conditions. And what happened to them? They just kicked out? Is the program that bad that's running now? Why can't you continue the existing program? That's my input.
Our next speaker is Julie M. Julie, you can unmute.
Hi, I live in the area between District 10 and 2 on the border, and we've had 2 robberies just on our street last week. Going for a walk in the park with my kids during the day, we see homeless people sleeping on the grass. I've had mentally ill people come up and intimidate us just while walking with kids. We call the police, they're often too busy to answer. And we keep having site after site proposed every 6 months. And Sylvia wanted a permanent solution. And I think that a site in Evergreen would be perfect and that all residents here would.
Our next, let's try Pamela Campos again. Pamela, you can unmute. Final chance, Pamela. Okay, our next speaker is Angelica Cristancho. Angelica, you can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna go quick. How is this a concrete proposal? You want a long-term solution having Monterey, isn't it? That's like a permanent one. So thanks for the gaslighting. The fairground is a great spot for temporary because it gives the county and the city incentive to get a solution and gives the victims the support they need to be better citizens. By the way, Sylvia, thanks for the word salad. Why don't we have it at Evergreen? Matt, why don't we have it at Almaden Valley? You got.
Our next speaker is Jenny Tran. Jenny, you can unmute.
Yeah, this is just absolutely unacceptable. I think I'm gonna need another minute of breathing after this meeting. My blood pressure's just gone up through the roof. This, you can see by the number of people in this meeting that we do not agree with this, the number of signatures on the petition, and do not use this meeting as a check mark that you've engaged the community. We spend a lot of money to live here and we really don't feel safe. And you just really need to have that in-person meeting. And you can guarantee I'll be there at Matt's meeting.
Our next speaker is Mira. Mira, you are unmuted. You can unmute.
Hi. Hey, I have a son and I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood where I believe that I want to walk, do things with him, and I don't because there are RVs everywhere. And now you just put this thing on us. How do you think we feel in our own homes? We don't feel safe. Can you please make us feel safe? We're paying taxes, the highest taxes in the whole country. How do you feel? How do you think we feel after paying so much? Should we just leave San Jose and go, leave California and go? No, right?
Our next speaker is Chris. Chris is the 4th to last speaker. Chris, you can unmute.
You hear me?
Yes.
I think this is very obvious now. This is just a temporary, and everybody has spoken that this is a no way of getting this far. This has to be killed soon. Mayor Mahan, I think you have the say to do this. It has to be killed soon. It will not go farther than this. And Sylvia, I think if you want, you can get it. You can get it in your district in Bergen Valley. That's all.
Our next speaker is Robert Aguirre. Robert, you can unmute.
Yeah, Robert Aguirre here. I have several questions. One, if Mayor Mahan took Measure E money for building temporary housing, why should we sell that temporary housing to the county? And how much money has been invested or spent on that location? And how much is the county offering for that land? And where would the city locate its replacement temporary housing? And why doesn't the county build their county home diversion?
Our next speaker is Sadai. You're the 2nd to last speaker. Sadai can unmute.
Okay, thank you for taking my call.
I was wondering, this homelessness problem is not going to be solved the way it's been going on so far. The drug is the main root problem, and that causes other crimes. These people need to be treated by professionals. We are just homeowners in San Jose. We are not apt for this. Please take this somewhere that can be useful.
Don Spitzer, you have waited patiently. You are our last speaker, and it is your turn to speak. You can unmute.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for the time. I do not support the transition to jail diversion housing. I believe that the South San Jose area is one of the highest areas with kids in it. It's about the only place we can afford in the Bay Area. Part of the homeless housing, moving to South San Jose, the number of homeless was not that significant. We were promised that the homeless were to be those already in the South Bay, local. But what we see today, we have VTA at the Coddle, we have VTA at the Santa Teresa site for RV Park, Santa Teresa and Sobra, and also Bernal.
Thank you all for attending today and staying a little beyond so that we could get our final speakers in. As I mentioned several times during the meeting, we will post responses to frequently asked questions on the county's website. The link is in the chat and is also available on the postcards that you received in the mail. There are questions now. We will add 2 questions over the next few days as we are able. Thank you for attending and have a good evening.